Hey there, I'm Elizabeth Thomas with Stories from the Hearth. I help people to write their life stories down for their children, children's, however far down things stick around. Today I have some tips for you about how to write your memoir so that people will want to read it. Let's get started.
Stories from the Hearth.
Alright, so 4 tips for writing a memoir people will want to read. Tip number 1 is to use concrete details. What I mean by that is that the more specific you are, the more people will believe you and the more they'll be sucked into your story. So don't just tell them, we lived on a house in Mulberry Street. Tell them, the house we lived in was a 2-story red brick building on Mulberry Street. And if you give them your address, by the way, people will love it because then they can go like Google Maps it or they can go find it and visit. Tip number 2, be concise. Don't ramble, people don't like it, and they'll be able to get through your story more easily. So if you don't need to say it, don't. 3rd tip, when you've got background information, put it at the beginning. That way it's not a, oh, you had to be there joke. They've already got the information about why the joke is funny. And you don't have to interrupt and put it before or after your punchline or something to be like, okay, let me explain why this is a good story. That applies to any story you've got, whether or not it's a joke. So if it's one that's going to make them cry, if it's one that's like, this was life-changing, that matters. Example, Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's a short story, and the author uses several pages at the beginning to explain the culture, to explain the characters, to explain the superstitions. Also that when Ichabod Crane comes to that bridge where the Headless Horseman is, everyone knows what's about to happen and it's not good. He doesn't have to interrupt and say, oh, by the way, while he's coming up to this bridge, let me explain to you a thing or two. We already know that. The explanation's already happened. We can get on with the story. Same thing in a memoir. Tip number 4. Leave out the dead goose. What I mean by this, it comes back to when I went to a storytelling festival and this person had this great long poem. It was beautiful, and in the middle they had this dead goose that they described in such detail and spent so much time on that the only thing I remember is the dead goose. And the dead goose was not the point of the poem. When you've got a tangent that doesn't apply and doesn't matter, leave it out. Don't spend extra time on it. Move on. Happy writing.